A new federal audit shows the shocking waste across dozens of government agencies. The Congressional Budget Office says federal agencies paid out, get this, $125 billion last year by mistake. The waste is equal to about a quarter of the entire budget deficit. With us now, GOP strategist Brad Blakeman. Brad, thanks for coming in. You know, the president is asking to raise the debt ceiling. We have $18 trillion in debt that you and I and our kids and grandkids are going to have to pay off. What's your reaction to this waste number?
It's an outrage. And the fact is that, remember what the president said in 2011 when he stood there with Joe Biden, called him Sheriff Joe, and he's going to be the czar to root out waste, corruption, and fraud. He's not a sheriff. He's more like Barney Fife. He couldn't catch a criminal if it was in front of him. The fact of the matter is, Democrats here in Washington, and this is really telling, Gerri, is they say, look, it's the cost of doing business. We have to accept there's a certain amount of fraud, waste, and abuse in a $4 trillion budget, and that's an outrage. Every agency is responsible for every dime they spend, and we shouldn't send the message that a certain amount of waste, fraud, and abuse is tolerated.
Crazy. And the president himself has said that cutting waste is a priority. Really? It's a priority? Then why is it up 18% year to year? Up nearly 20%. Are you kidding me? $124.7 billion. Money just frittered away. And nowhere is it wasted more than earned income tax credits. 27% of that money, fraud. And as you know how this works, Brad, basically what happens is that people apply for it, and it is a tax credit. This isn't a deduction. You get the money in your hot little hand, and it gets abused mercilessly. What should we do with that?
Well, what we need to do is we shouldn't have a policy of catch me if you can. They shouldn't have the ability to get that tax credit to begin with, or any other government entitlement that they're not entitled to. And in the age of computers, you would think that this administration, especially by the genius use of their computers when it was in their interest in a campaign, would be able to develop the computer programs that would be able to tell us who is committing fraud, waste, and abuse.
No, we're relying on technology to, take pictures of dresses we're wearing Saturday night. We're not detecting fraud in the government. That would be too much. Medicaid fraud, almost $60 billion. That's really the biggest number in the whole thing. Have we just lost complete control of the nation's finances here?
Under this president, this administration, the answer sadly is yes. By having less transparency in government, by admitting or at least telling agencies a certain amount of fraud, waste, and abuse is going to be tolerated, sends a terrible message. And we need a new sheriff in town, and hopefully that sheriff will arrive in 2017 and start doing the business of the people that should have been done under this administration.
We've got a long way to go. We can waste so much money before then, Brad. I mean, this could go on and on. I have to ask you before you go, though. We had a story yesterday that frankly, I think teed everybody off. The FOIA, the Freedom of Information request, the White House's administrative office is saying, we're not going to comply with that anymore. It's over. We were the presidency of clarity, sharing information, not anymore. What was your reaction?
Totally unacceptable. But the administration, remember, promised to be the most open and transparent in history. It's turned out to be the most clandestine. And their modus operandi is, if you don't like what we're doing, sue us. And we do. We sue in healthcare, EPA, IRS, you name it.
It's a waste of time, though.
Yeah,
it's a waste of time, and we should be doing things right the first time. Brad, a pleasure having you on the show tonight. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, Gerri.